TLO, what's poppin'? We are on Twitch. We are not live, but you can leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on your post notification bells. Let's continue to grow the family from Chicago to the UK. We are at the Blueprint Studios recording this one. Salute to them. Link down in the description. This is getting access to Andrew Tate's Secret Society, brought to us by Vice. Vice just don't quit. They really don't like Andrew Tate over at Vice, but you know, I'm here for it. Salute to Vice. I love Vice. I love what they be doing over there. But this alone, this is like 2 in a row. That first one that y'all dropped, Vice. No, let's get to it. Go back. This one is a little bit cappy. Nah, this one a little bit capping here, a little bit. There's a lot of bit almost. But let's see what this one's about.
Reporters for Vice News travel the world, putting a human face to the world's most important stories.
This is
a kick bomb, one of the most on. We hear from the team who spent time.
Have you seen one?
American journalist.
There's not a single female complaining.
Do you think there's not a single female
This guy has a real hatred for Andrew.
complaining?
Have you seen one? Tell me.
In this episode, we hear from the team who spent time with Andrew Tate, the former kickboxer turned online personality whose extreme misogynist videos have helped make him one of the most viral men in the world. Vice's Matt Shea and Jamie Tossin spent time with Tate and got rare access to his inner circle.
I'm gonna look at this screen over here. There's one right here, but I like this one better.
Go! One thing that stands in the way of truth, for example, is when we often do documentaries, we have full access to speak to anyone we want.
Is this just like lost footage from the first one? Repurposed footage?
No, but in this documentary, we've been very closely watched by the sartorial shooter at Alpha Wolf, picking who we can speak to, monitoring the interview.
Yeah.
What is it that you're worried that we're going to find out?
These questions are so loaded.
This is low. It's low. We let you in. We tried to take care of you, and you're sitting here and just attacking us for 3 hours.
Thank you guys for joining me and talking about your extraordinary report.
Oh, this is just to talk about it. Okay.
This is a long investigation. You got incredible access and revelations of some really serious allegations. So let's dive right in. What's the 101? For someone who doesn't know who Andrew Tate is, why were you following him for so long, and what did you find out?
Well, Jamie first started looking into Andrew Tate years ago, and since then he's only grown in popularity. So he is a kind of a viral influencer who's known for his sort of self-help style videos, which claim to teach you how to become a wealthy alpha male. But he's become more famous for his kind of viral misogynistic diatribes where he talks about violence against women, that women are men's property and things like that. His videos have been viewed over 13 billion times on TikTok alone.
Billion
with a B. He, at one point last summer, was more Googled than Kim Kardashian and Donald Trump. So, a lot of adults may not know who he is, but I guarantee that if you don't know who he is, your son does, your nephew does, and they're watching him probably right now on TikTok.
And so what made you want to follow what he was doing, Jamie?
Yeah, so in the sort of later part of 2019, I DM'd Andrew Tate after a colleague at work actually told me about how a friend of hers brother had become obsessed with this guy called Andrew Tate and was taking pictures dressed like him, doing set-up shots where he was playing chess. And that just immediately grabbed me, that there was this figure that young men were emulating in such a direct way. And then when I found him online, obviously he was posting incredibly shockingly misogynistic content, graphic descriptions of violence towards women. And I think what shocked me most about him, because obviously the man...
Some of this you gotta know, man. Andrew Tate, he's in character for some of this. But other parts of this is life experience. Is what I feel. You know what I'm saying? He's elevated himself through financial gain, however he got it, to certain, and he's to a certain level. And at that level that he's at, he's seeing things a different way than us down here are seeing them. You know what I'm saying? But up there at that level, $500 million, I can do anything I want in life legally. I can go anywhere, I can buy anything, that type of mindset. Like, it's different. It is not the same. If people with money and people that were broke went through the same things, then what's the point of getting money? You know what I'm saying? It's a different day-to-day life when you got that type of money, and I think he was just expressing it. You know.
Honestly.
Now, all the other allegations and whatnot, he's still in court for that, and it's not my place to play judge, jury, and executioner. So I'm not going to.
It had been around for a while at that point, right? These sort of like male influencers. But with Andrew, he was simultaneously the most shocking, but also quickly becoming the most popular. And not only was his community people messaging each other online with messages of support about Andrew Tate, but he had fans who were willing to pay thousands of dollars to meet up in real life and spend time with Andrew Tate and learn from Andrew Tate. And that immediately
ain't nothing wrong with that. That's business.
Grabbed me as something that we hadn't necessarily seen before.
So talk me through how you got the access, because he's letting you into kind of his inner sanctum. You witnessed quite a bit, so like must not have been easy to convince him to do that.
Yeah, so I mean, when I first reached out to Andrew, he was still relatively unknown. He had about 50,000 Instagram followers, which when you compare to his profile now is fairly insane. But
what profile? Is it even up still?
I think, as you'll see in our film, has to an extent perhaps always been interested in becoming famous. He was on 2 reality TV shows as a young man, and then seemed to sort of court the tabloid press in the UK for coverage about his webcam business that he was running at the time. So when I first reached out to him, he was actually pretty receptive to Vice coming to cover him. He has, I believe, potentially a bit of an ego that wanted him to have that coverage, but he sort of invited us in cautiously with, you can have an interview, you can come into our sort of house, you can meet Tristan, but that's it. And I sort of spent the next like year and a half just speaking to him, staying in touch regularly. Throughout that period, I managed to get access to his war room and his inner circle. And he was cautious about letting us in, but for some reason, keen for us to be there.
And that's great work by you, my boy. That's exactly, you did exactly what you were supposed to do as your field, in your field of work. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and like when he's letting you in, you can see in the film some of his associates being like, "What are you doing? Like letting these guys into our place?" What did it feel like to be in there? Because it is quite odd. They're women sort of serving you. They're men on computers doing things. Like you played chess with him.
Yeah. I mean, we basically were allowed into his lair, and as you said, to meet his inner circle. It was actually kind of scary because they, as you said, all hated us being there. His brother was furious that we were there, kept saying this is going to be a hit piece. The other members of Inner Circle really
Which in all actuality was it? It kind of was, you know what I'm saying? You could tell that y'all did, or whoever specifically did that last one, wasn't really thrilled by Andrew, but
disagreed with us being there.
All right, let's be nice to our Vice friend. So let me be nice to him before he does a hit piece.
This is definitely a hit piece. I've warned my brother that this is a setup, and this is what everyone.
I don't care. I'm uninterested. I've clearly conquered the internet. I'm clearly unstoppable. I'm like the Borg.
You've invited the liberal news media to come.
They can all come.
I think he understood something about publicity, and he had an idea that all publicity is good publicity. No matter if you shock people, offend people, whatever, it helps you to become more viral and ultimately helps you to sell more courses and achieve your goals of becoming wealthy.
And that's what I be thinking, man. Andrew's a businessman. If there's a field for what you need to do, like if you can get grown men to come in and spend thousands of dollars and tell them how to be better men, do it.
But I think what he didn't account for was that this is the kind of publicity that may not be so good. One of the scariest moments that happened was I interviewed him when we were playing chess, and I asked him some kind of difficult questions about his misogynistic views. And then later that day he said, "Oh, do you want to come to the fight gym and just film me sparring a professional UFC fighter? It might be some good footage for your documentary." I said, "Yes." When I got there, he said, "Put some gloves on, you're fighting." And I'd never
gotcha, didn't he? Payback.
Boxed or done anything like that before. Within seconds, Andrew Tate was punching me in the face. And he was
not very hard, man. Don't go back on it like that. We watched it. You went in there, you agreed. You could have said no, but you went in there, you did what you did, and I salute you for that. You did what a lot of people would not do. You went in there and you did that. But that was your. At the end of the day, it was your choice to go in there because you could have said no.
Like, yeah, 10 more rounds, let's go. You know, you're in this well. And I sort of was like, can I fight someone my own size? And he said, yeah, okay, this guy. And he pulled over this guy who was my own height, but like, you know, twice the size of me in terms of muscle. And he just like wailed on me. I felt like I was gonna pass out.
Jamie, you must have been kind of worried at that point.
Yeah, there's a point where I had to jump in because, I mean, I was having explicit conversations with them beforehand going, you know, this guy doesn't know how to box. I don't think we should be doing this. Like, if you're going to do it, can it please be sort of training and sparring? Which, to be fair to Andrew, as much as he punched you in the face, I think he respected to a degree.
Yeah.
But his inner circle, who were less happy with us being there, I would say took it as a chance to take something out on Matt.
You ever boxed before?
No.
Who's got spare gloves? You don't mind spare gloves? There you go.
I appear to have unintentionally walked into a situation where Andrew Tate is going to train me how to box.
Punch me.
You see what he said earlier? He said he was wailing on me. This ain't wailing. I boxed. This is just going light on you.
Punch me. Knock out.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, look like you're bleeding already. It's only around.
Now, keep it coming from a standpoint where if you've never gotten into a fight, your skin is not prepared for that any type of, you know, boxing gloves are. You know what I'm saying?
We've only warmed up. Keep them on, bro. We've got 10 more rounds.
No fucking way.
A performance that truly matters.
Well, and from like a journalistic point of view, when you're in these kind of high pressure, high access scenarios, sometimes you do want to ingratiate yourself to the person who's offering you that access. And like, yeah, you guys are buddies now. He respects you, so to speak, because you got punched in the face.
Exactly, yeah. We were only able to get the level of access and do the level of interviews with him that we were able to do by gaining their respect by kind of going through the War Room initiation. The War Room is the secret society that he runs out of Romania, where you pay $5,000 to learn to be his version of a real man. So yeah, we did do that, and that's how we got the access.
You see Tate kind of get happy to see that you're, you know, getting in into the.
Let's be real, bro. Let's be real. All I hear is Tate did this, Tate did this, Tate did that. You did it too. You knew that this would be a viral moment. You knew that this would push this video. That you knew that this video. Where's the original at, man? You knew that the original video would get pushed because you did stuff like this, and I salute you. You really did. You went crazy when you went in that. When you went in this octagon, it set you apart. But don't act like you just did it and you ain't want to do it. You knew what would come of it. Good publicity.
Octagon itself to like actually fight. And at times I was nervous for you, right, as I'm watching it, because I know that you can get seriously injured doing this kind of stuff. And then at other times I thought to
But let's be real, them octagon fighters are going like 25%.
myself, like, how else are you going to do this? Are you going to say no and I don't want to fight? Like, you kind of, it was a, you know, you're on the ride. You were on the Andrew Tate ride when you were in there.
Agreed.
And it was just wild to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did it hurt?
It did hurt. Yeah, I mean, I kind of cracked my rib. I was like, couldn't really walk properly for a bit afterwards. And I lasted like kind of longer than I thought. Then after a while, he was like punching me and kicking me, and I was like, oh, I'd quite like this to stop. So I sort of kind of pretended to tackle him, but really just went in and sort of like hugged him and was
That's what you're supposed to do. Tie up. When you want to stop for a second, you tie up.
like, and then he just threw me on the ground, sat on me and started punching me in the face. And that was the end.
In a sense, it is a little funny, but it's really serious. I mean, in the fights that you saw, like someone got sent to the hospital, and it kind of demonstrates how much people are willing to like go to the line.
But at the end of the day, when you went in that octagon and you fight and you stood there for longer than you can, how did you come out feeling? It's a good question. How did you come out feeling after you did something that you didn't think you can do and you stood in there for longer than that you ever thought you could?
Line for this guy's approval, or to like buy into his concept of manliness, which is like you got to fight each other. That's like It's very retrograde, obviously, but it's very visceral and it's very dangerous on that very specific level. What was it like to see these people who paid $5,000 to be in this kind of like training program go at it?
I mean, for me, it was really quite shocking because it shows you the level to which, like you said, they're so desperate to win his approval. These are people that often hadn't had any fighting experience before. Many of them, some were in good shape, some weren't. Everyone had to go through a medical test before the fights. They were all fit to fight, but they definitely weren't prepared to fight a professional MMA fighter, right? And you would assume that sort of any reasonable-minded person who's given the chance of fighting a professional MMA fighter in 2 days' notice would say no. And
I'd do it. No cap, I'd do it. You know what I'm saying? Coming from where I come from, though, it's different. It's a little bit. And coming from where a lot of y'all come from, it's different. Like, you know how to fight. And if you don't, you know. But most of us, we know how to handle ourselves.
and not necessarily feel ashamed.
Not at an MMA level, but, you know what I'm saying? We wouldn't be, all right, I'll do it. You know what I'm saying? I'd do it. Not saying that I would pay $5,000 to do it. Absolutely not. But like, if it push come to shove, it's like if I met Andrew Tate and he was like, "Come on, let's go spar." All right, come on. I do it.
Their manlyhood in doing so.
But
same with Patty the Batty. Like me and Patty the Batty, we cool. If Patty the Batty was ever in Miami and he invited me to the gym and he was like, "Yo, come on, let's get in," I would get in.
Some people did say no. And like that was part of the process too, right? Like kind of shaming those who didn't rise up to the Spartan challenge.
Would I confidently get in? No, but I would get in.
Yeah, I think that was like a really interesting part in that roughly 2/3 of the men there that were asked to fight said no, and those 2/3 were sort of subject to a period of shaming. So they would be forced to sit facing a wall and write down on a piece of paper all the ways in which they failed to make this decision to fight, how it's going to affect their life, why they should be more open to opportunities going forward.
I don't think that's a form of shaming. Is you came here for a reason, and you came here for a reason. You paid $5,000 to come here for a reason, and we put you up against a task, and you passed on the task, which is your choice. 100% pass, that's all you want. But why do you think you passed? What mental barriers do you have in your mind that made you stop? You know what I'm saying? Like, how can we get past this? How can we do? There's two ways to think about it.
Fight, how it's going to affect their life, why they should be more open to opportunities going forward. And they would also have one-on-one sessions with various people in Andrew Tate's inner network that obviously we weren't allowed to be privy to, but you would assume was a sort of continuation of that shaming process that they were told.
I don't call it shaming. I don't think I ever call that shaming.
They were being put through.
Kind of breaking people down.
And I think that
Not bringing people down, breaking down barriers you have in your mind. Self-doubt, breaking down that type. That's how I'm taking
that
it.
is sort of a distillation of the insecurity that a lot of men feel that he's prying open and, in my opinion, kind of exploiting. So he presents all these men with a choice. You know, in a few days, you've been paired up with a professional MMA fighter. You can either say yes or no, right? And you need to make your decision. And you can back out at any time, but you've got to make that decision, right? And then all of a sudden, you're confronted with all those questions that, as men, we feel all the time, like, oh, like, am I not tough enough? If I'm not tough enough to do this, why? Am I pathetic?
You're making a great point right now. You're making a great point on why he did that exercise, I feel.
You know, the word pussy gets thrown around a lot. All the things that, you know,
Yeah, real world words.
we've probably spent our lives feeling insecure about are heightened at that moment. And in that pressure cooker of male insecurity, there's only one person who has all the answers, and that's Andrew Tate. He set himself up as the
There's only one person that they came there to hear the answers from. They paid $5,000.
guy who holds the key to you becoming an alpha, to you know, vanquishing that insecurity and becoming
Me personally, I thought that was a great exercise. Not just, you got to look outside the fighting part of it. Like, in life in general, man. When certain things are presented to you, why do you protect it? Why do you say no to them instead of stepping out on a ledge and trying? You never know what this opportunity can put you in life.
a real man. And so that you can see why a lot of men sort of, that appeals to them.
Andrew Tate has obviously said a lot of kind of controversial things online.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
A lot of things are very controversial, but I think the bottom of his message is a very, very positive one. Because if I'm not tough on myself, nobody else will be. Nobody really cares about me if I don't care about me, right? That's what I learned from Andrew Tate.
You know, when you...
That's a fact. Let me just give an example. Me, I'm a father. Being a father is a thankless job. Nobody applauds you for being a good dad. You're supposed to be a good dad, right? Now, me, mentally, I take that in. And yes, it'd be hard. Like, man, it'd be a lot of people out here that don't be taking care of their kids. But I'm taking care of my kids. And nobody, Father's Day comes around, nothing happens. Like, no, I just got to take that. I got to deal with it inside of myself. And push positivity and keep going. Like, there's no, you know what I'm saying? There's nothing that, I don't know.
You get to meet someone who's as, I guess, like, popular, cultish as a leader. Sometimes you get some insight into, like, what their charisma comes from, like, how it actually...
And keep in mind, I would never pay I would never, I don't agree with some of the stuff Andrew Tate did, but I don't disagree with some of it, so...
happens. Like, in meeting him and spending so much time with him, like, did you get a sense of, like, where does it come from? Like, how is he so charismatic? Why is he able to appeal to so many people? Like, what would you say his, like, secret sauce is?
I think that it's no secret that men have, since time immemorial, felt insecure about their own masculinity and have been jealous of other men who appear to be wealthier, appear to be more attractive to women, appear to be stronger and more able to fight.
Certain men.
He basically exacerbates that dilemma and presents himself as this kind of almost caricature of stereotypical masculinity. So as a man, I can understand why, if you're feeling insecure, you might want his approval, especially as a young man, a young adolescent boy who's, you know, one of the main target audiences that he appeals to. Of course, it's important to remember that this is a man who's currently in jail under investigation for rape and human trafficking, and who, through our own reporting, we've spoken to women who say that he has either raped or abused them. So,
Scott, how does this work?
Yeah, so very simply, any investor can go to...
Under investigation, man. I feel like a lot of these news stations, a lot of these people are gonna be eating their words. And that's me personally, man. Because women, I'm not trying to make it a women thing, but like scorn people or things that, like, people that feel that they've been not taken advantage of, feel that they've been, some didn't go their way, will say anything. I'm not saying that this is the case. He could go the other way, but I'm interested to see how the case goes, is what I'm going to say. Because once again, I'm not here to play judge, jury, or executioner.
I mean, it goes without saying, it's obviously not the kind of man that you'd think you should want to win the approval of, and yet still, to this day, many people do.
When you wrap it up like that, it is sort of like there's a very dark side to this, and you found much of it through your own reporting. Can you talk about what you found, who you talked to? Because, I mean, these are very serious allegations of sexual assault. You were able to obtain material that maybe corroborated that allegedly. So talk to me about what you found, because, like, it's not only that people get sent to the hospital because they get, you know, hit so badly in his cult, so to speak, alleged cult, but that his actual personal actions themselves, both on a micro level and maybe on a macro level, allegedly, potentially, are extremely damaging.
Yeah, so we spoke to a number of women in our film and in our reporting around the film, mainly based in the UK. And I think what we focused on in our film was the fact that Andrew, despite his constant claims that no women have ever come forward with complaints about him, no women are ever complaining, he's never been accused of a crime in his life, this was something he would regularly say until his recent arrest. We spoke to 3 women who did go to the police in the UK with allegations of rape or physical assault between 2013 and 2015. And as you said, one of those sources had voice.
What do you get from me hating it? Because I'm a terrible person? And I love and watching you let me while I'm still debating if a good idea or not. I like the conflict you have, and you do have it, don't deny it. Makes you feel powerful? No, I'm already powerful, honest.
Voice notes, text messages that appeared to be Andrew Tate corroborating that he had sexual...
I don't think so. Well, you can say it, that not to me. Andrew, Andrew, you're not stupid. Why would I talk to you if I didn't want to see you? So you agree to my, and let you do it good. If I consent, it's not. If I consent, it's not. No, but it's still controlling the abuse. For you're a smart guy, but consented is what I got from this is right here. She consent. All right, whatever.
Assaulted her. I mean, for us, it was particularly harrowing to hear rating that he had sexually assaulted
I feel like they went right over this.
her. I mean, for us, it was particularly harrowing to hear that Andrew Tate allegedly had been held in custody for crimes very similar for what he was later accused of in Romania, in the UK, you know, the country where we both live, and yet was never formally charged.
How did Andrew Tate respond to these allegations?
He, of course, denied these allegations via his lawyer.
Mm-hmm. Now, Andrew Tate is currently...
I'm just going off the text message they sent me. Y'all can say how it... Y'all can decode it however y'all want to decode it or take it in, but what I seen is what I seen. If I consented, then it's not.
Or at the time of our filming, like in a prison, is that correct?
Yes.
So like the timing of this is so interesting as well, because over the holidays
Or maybe I could be taking it in wrong, so y'all can tell me in the comments like, hey, I don't think it meant that way. Like I'm just reading it.
Obviously got into that spat with the climate activist and was seemingly, you know, arrested very shortly thereafter, and the allegations here are human trafficking, right? Which is like even like it's crazy and it's insane and it's extremely damaging. So like when you were in his compound, did you get the sense that like something weird might be happening here? Again, this is like a spidey sense kind of question, but like
it was honestly more than a spidey sense. It was. He had a course on his website called the PhD, or the Pimping Hose degree, which instructed men on how to, shall we say, convince women to work for you in the pornographic industry. We directly asked him when we were there. I said, have you heard of the term lover boy before? And he immediately said, the lover boy method. So he knew what that was, which is when you kind of lure women in with the promise of a romantic relationship or a flashy lifestyle, and then end up making money from them exploitatively in a sex-adjacent industry, such as webcam modeling, which is what the business he ran. That lover boy method is now a key part of the investigation by the Romanian police. Have you heard the term lover boy before?
The lover boy method?
Yeah. Romantically involving yourself with a woman and then making money off of her in some sort of sex-adjacent industry.
Firstly, I would call the webcam industry far closer to psychology than sex. The webcam industry has prevented more male suicide than any group of therapists, any action group, any charity ever would, right?
Is that true? How can you measure that?
Well, it's not about measuring, it's about my personal experience.
One of the concerns that people have about that lover boy method is that
let me correct you, because I'm a professional.
Is that it's similar to, or people might consider that a form of grooming.
Okay, so I'm a professional, so I have to change what you just said. I have to at least challenge you on it. Nobody's concerned about anything that happened 10 years ago when a bunch of girls got rich. There's not a single female complaining.
Do you think there's not a single female complaining?
Have you seen one? Tell me.
We asked him about that well before he was arrested, and most people don't realize that, you know, months before he was arrested, recently, his compound was raided by the Romanian police as part of that investigation. So the signs were there that something could be happening. When we were touring around his house, he was saying, can't take you there, that's classified. Don't go in there, that's classified. If you try and go in there, my security guard will put a gun in your face. You know, there were lots of signs. I mean, it's almost kind of incredible that no investigation, that this didn't happen sooner, you know, given all that.
Yeah. I'm curious, what did the raids of his house, what came out of those raids? Because I'm pretty sure they went into those rooms as well, right? So I'm curious what they actually found.
I think, just to add to that, like the term hiding in plain sight in terms of his content has never been more relevant, right? This is a man who, as you'll see in the archive, his own material that appears in our film, he's explicitly spoken about exploiting women, holding women against their will, getting women to work for him in the webcam business. These are all things he's said publicly on YouTube. So, I mean, personally, like Andrew Tate got a lot of coverage in the last year, and there were quite a lot of journalists from other publications who would go out there, interview him, and seemingly make no attempts to verify his claims. And I think that was something we found really, really frustrating. How much, because he did become such a viral individual, right? I feel like a lot of journalists maybe flocked to him to sort of feed off that virality, but they weren't willing to actually do the investigations to see, you know, is there something more sinister behind the scenes here?
Yeah, and there's no excuse for that because the information was out there. You could see his page where he is pimping hosiery online. You know, it's kind of shocking that it took so long for, you know, anyone to kind of call him up on these things.
You know, the question of like when you cover someone who's trying to get as much publicity as possible, who says things that are offensive, damaging, you know, potentially even violent. Like, did you guys ever think about, like, gosh, are we giving this guy more of a platform? Like, you know, should we pull back? Like, should this just be a written article rather than such a, you know, well-produced, fully fleshed out, immersive documentary? How did you guys think of that question?
Definitely, I think it's a really important question. I think that there's two things. First of all, we went there to challenge him, not platform him, and ultimately give a voice for the first time to the women who alleged that he abused them. So, and this ties into the second answer, which is he's already out there, right? Like he's one of the most famous people in the world. His videos are being viewed like, you know, billions of times, literally. It's important to put something out there in the world that hopefully people will see, where they can see Andrew Tate in the context of the women who've made allegations against him. So maybe when they Google Andrew Tate.
Now, don't forget it is National Women's Month, and women being forced to do anything against their free will or brought to do something that is not exactly what they thought was going to happen, it's pretty messed up. So don't think I'm not advocating for women in any type of way, but I'm off the stuff that I'm seeing on this is where what I'm saying is coming from. Let's make that clear.
Tate, the next time they won't just see his videos of him being funny or whatever it is that appeals to people about him. They'll see our video and they'll understand the full story. And like, you know, I think it's really, really important to do that because we need to start challenging him and his views in as loud a way as possible, because you know, a majority of young men in at least the UK and the US
nothing wrong with that
will have seen his content.
Again, these are allegations that he denies, but I guess to me, my next question is, what has the reception been? Because a lot of this is out there already. As you know, delineate very clearly in the piece, like he has effectively an army of young influencers themselves who are cutting up his videos, putting them out on various social media platforms, and that it's part of a chain of commerce. Like everyone's kind of making money from it, him at the top of the pyramid, of course. What has the reaction been to some of these serious allegations from his like army of followers?
I mean, there's been a very strong reaction from his followers, I would say, and it sort of ranges between, you know, your typical threats of physical abuse or death threats, all the way to sort of fairly wild conspiracy theories that perhaps I'm a Matrix or FBI agent that's controlling Matt to do a hit piece against Andrew Tate. Like, we've seen some really wild stuff, but I think for me, what's been most interesting is like the vast amount of hate that I'm getting from Andrew Tate followers is essentially calling me a bad journalist.
No hate. No, I don't think you're a bad journalist, and I'm not an Andrew Tate follower, but I think you're an excellent journalist. I think what y'all did was excellent.
Fake news, all of the things that, like, okay.
Really, I mainly get death threats.
Matt gets a lot of death threats, but I think like one thing for me that's particularly shocking is, you know, particularly in the UK, there are a number of female journalists who I've spoken to who've reported on Andrew Tate, and the hate they receive is far more violent, includes violent threats of sexual assault, and these are people that are just reporting on him. They haven't interviewed him, they haven't gone into his compound, they haven't made this film. Like, so I think it's quite revealing as to, you know, what his fans think, right?
Those are just goofies. Those type of fans, those dudes doing that, they're clowns.
And the fact that I get called a bad journalist, but if a woman writes about him, she's likely to get threats of sexual assault and death.
Yeah, that's clownery, that's foolery. Why would y'all do that to them women like that? That ain't cool.
That's been really telling for me.
I wonder if we could talk about what might be called as the crisis in masculinity. Mm-hmm. And this particular, I mean, this is like the most famous man on the internet, basically, mm-hmm. right? Maybe not the second most famous man on the internet. And he's preaching a breed of misogyny he is attracting immense amounts of followers. Like, what is he offering that people aren't getting? Like, how do you think that all comes together?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing we have to say is that ultimately the main victims here are women rather than men. You know, in a discussion about Andrew Tate and his extremist views, it's ultimately the women who suffer as a result of this. But of course, you know, it's also right to ask, why is this appealing to so many young men? And I think, as I said before, like, we all as men are constantly insecure about our own masculinity. And, you know, a lot of the pressures that men feel or put on themselves are that they need to be providers, they need to be strong and tough. Whereas in reality, what would probably help a lot of these young men more is to actually show some vulnerability and acceptance of not being like in control and in power, because no one ever is.
Yeah, it's like, it's not just like, let's go back to the 1950s style misogyny. It's like, let's go back to the 1350s.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's worrying because, you know, if you, several years ago at the height of the Me Too movement, if you were to say this man is going to become the most famous person in the world overnight, you would never be able to fathom that happening. It appears that we've had a complete regression to, you know, before the Me Too movement, and it seems that you know, there's been the opposite of progress.
I guess what's next is almost my question, but I guess we don't know. I mean, the current state as we're filming it is that he's in prison or in jail. He's facing very serious charges. But I guess what we've learned from these sorts of extremists, both online, in politics, and otherwise, is that like their followers don't just go away. And you know, it's not like these ideas, once they spread, just die once the person who espouses it the strongest is either punished or deposed or whatever. Yeah. Like, it's out there, and this is like young men are exposed to it. So I guess my question is, like, we've opened a door of a new era in misogyny, as sort of you guys dictate. So, you know, where does it go from there?
I mean, it's a really worrying question, because you're right to say that, you know, the movement has to an extent gone beyond Andrew Tate. He has hundreds of thousands of followers, and even if he's in prison, if he is found guilty at the end of this, they're still going to be out there. They're still going to likely view him as a martyr. You know, allegations have come forward time and time again about Andrew Tate, but it doesn't stop his fans supporting him. So I think, like,
we buy any car. We buy any car. That's surprising. I've only seen 2 ads on this. That's tough.
It's much bigger than that. It's the problem of misogyny across the whole of the world, throughout society, and Andrew Tate has become a big symbol for that and a big pusher of that message. But
what if he's innocent? Like, what if he goes through the whole court proceedings and then he's found innocent? It's gonna be crazy.
He's not the whole thing, and I think it's something we need to be more wary of as a society and as a whole.
Yeah, and I think gender roles are increasingly becoming kind of the main battleground of the far right and the alt-right in the US and in Europe.
And would you describe Tate as like a far right extremist? Because he's certainly like a misogynistic extremist, but what is the overlap or Venn diagram with that kind of stuff?
Well,
the politics, I guess, specifically.
Yeah, there are definitely connections within Tate's war room to members of the alt-right or the far right, if you want to call it that.
I think, yeah, it's worth saying at the start that, like, Andrew has always claimed that he is completely apolitical. He's claimed that the war room is completely apolitical. It's just about men, nothing to do with politics. But if you look at the kinds of media celebrities that Andrew is associated with regularly from 2019 all the way through to now, you know, the names that crop up the most are Paul Joseph Watson, Alex Jones, Mike Cernovich, Tommy Robinson, who for the US audience is probably the most famous British racist. So he clearly seems to associate with and go on the platforms of people who represent pretty far right views. So as much as he may claim...
You said Tommy Robinson, was that?
Racist. So he clearly... Tommy Robinson, who... So as much as he may claim to not be political, you can sort of take what you want from those associations.
Well, thank you guys for all of this reporting. Thank you for putting yourself in a position.
And I still think they're great journalists. For what they did, they did. They went above and beyond to get their story. That's great journalism. Period.
To get punched in the face?
Yeah, no, I feel like everyone wants to see a vice journalist get punched in
But I still feel like it's stretched a little bit.
the face, so you're welcome.
And I look forward to seeing what's next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For sure.
I'm Michael Lerma.
No. I said everything that I had to say during this reaction, man. So, you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, if your opinion's different from mine, then go ahead, let me know in the comments. Let's talk about it. At me. So y'all don't leave a like, comment, I'm gone. Don't forget we did record this in the Blueprint Studios. Look at the quality.